The world is changing, fast. The old rules, breaking down. The balance of power, shifting. For decades, the United States relied on its military alliances to maintain dominance. NATO in Europe, and now AUKUS in the Indo-Pacific. But with China rising, the question is simple. Are these alliances strong enough to counter Beijing's ambitions? Because if they fail, America's global power collapses. So can NATO and AUKUS hold the line? Or are they outdated relics in a world where China dictates the rules? Stay with me, because what we uncover today could change everything. Let's start with NATO, the most powerful military alliance in history. For 75 years, NATO deterred Soviet aggression, stood firm through the Cold War, and expanded its reach across Europe. It became the backbone of Western security, ensuring that any attack on one member would be met with collective force. But despite its unmatched military power, NATO's focus has always been the Atlantic, defending Europe from Russia. But here's the problem. The biggest threat to US dominance today? It's not in Europe, it's in the Pacific. China is not just an economic powerhouse, it's a military juggernaut. Its navy is already the largest in the world. Its missile technology rivals America's. It's rapidly advancing its cyber warfare capabilities, and it's forging security pacts with Russia, Iran, and North Korea, creating a web of alliances that directly challenges Western influence. So where does NATO stand? Can it pivot to counter China? Some members, like the UK and France, are already increasing their presence in the Indo-Pacific. The UK has deployed its largest aircraft carrier, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, to the region. France has sent warships to challenge China's territorial claims. NATO has even called China a systemic challenge. But let's be real. NATO was built for a different war, a land war in Europe, not a maritime showdown with China. And that's where AUKUS comes in. AUKUS, a military pact between the US, the UK, and Australia. It's not just another alliance, it's a direct response to China's growing dominance. It represents a strategic shift, focusing on cutting-edge military technology and intelligence sharing to counter Beijing's expansion. The deal? The US will help Australia acquire nuclear-powered submarines, silent, deadly, and capable of staying submerged for months. The goal? Strengthen America's presence in the Indo-Pacific and send a clear message to Beijing. But here's the catch. China isn't sitting still. It's expanding its naval bases. It's militarizing the South China Sea. It's setting up dual-use ports in places like Djibouti, Pakistan, and the Solomon Islands, potential forward bases for Chinese warships. And it's buying influence across the Pacific through debt diplomacy, strategic investments, and military cooperation. In Australia, it won't have those nuclear subs for nearly 2 decades. Meanwhile, China is launching new warships every year. So the question remains, will AUKUS be enough? Here's the harsh truth. Military alliances are only as strong as their commitment. And right now, there are cracks in America's system. Let's start with NATO. Europe is divided. France and Germany want strategic autonomy, less reliance on the US-Turkey, playing both sides, working with NATO while cutting deals with Russia. And then there's the question of political will. If war breaks out over Taiwan, will NATO really back America in a fight against China? Now look at AUKUS. The idea is solid. But execution, that's another story. Australia's subs won't be ready for years. The UK's Navy is shrinking, with aging vessels being retired faster than new ones can be built. Meanwhile, China is using every delay to strengthen its own forces. And then there's the economic factor. China is the biggest trading partner for many NATO and AUKUS members. Would these nations risk economic disaster to follow the US into conflict? Washington is pushing back. The US has boosted military aid to allies, expanded joint exercises, and deepened ties with regional players like Japan, South Korea, and India. But China is countering every move. The Belt and Road Initiative has embedded Beijing in global supply chains. Nations that once depended on the US for security now rely on China for economic survival. So, where does this all lead? One thing is clear, a showdown is coming. China isn't backing down. The US isn't retreating, And the alliances America built to secure its power, they are being tested like never before. If NATO pivots to the Pacific, if AUKUS strengthens rapidly, and if America doubles down on its commitment, then China faces real opposition. But if these alliances weaken, if hesitation takes hold, then the Pacific may fall under Beijing's control. The stakes? Massive. A world where China dictates the rules of global trade, where the U.S. military's reach is limited, where democratic allies question whether Washington will still stand by them in times of crisis. This isn't just about military bases or warships. This is about the future of global leadership. The decisions made today will shape the world for generations. And if America gets it wrong, the world will never be the same. So what do you think? Can NATO and AUKUS hold the line against China? Or is America's alliance system crumbling? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your take. And if you found this breakdown valuable, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Econ Atlas. Because understanding global power struggles, it's not just important, it's the key to the future. Stay informed, stay ahead, and I'll see you in the next one.